You generally do not get paid for going on TV. You can't really get paid and have it be a partial, impartial. All right, so Airbnb is clocking in 2.8 billion in revenue last quarter, and that's up a lot. But we have to look at the COVID experience. They're probably one of the most impacted by COVID, right? Do I put operations and support in COGS? I think you have to. I think so. You can see it's a very profitable company. So it's kind of like an Uber business model, but better. They're like what Uber wants to be. See something here. All right, so like $1 billion in operating income a year or a quarter. Interesting. Again, this is my first exposure to Airbnb, at least the business. So I have a million thoughts racing in my head, and I'm trying to suppress all of them because you have to be really careful when you form these judgments and not anchor off of like the wrong perspective. What's up, Brian? Somebody asked a rather silly question about using ChatGPT to write Excel files. Well, ChatGPT can't export into Excel or do anything like that. It's also time limited on its data. Its most recent data is a year and a half or 2 years old. So it's not a very robust system. I program with ChatGPT every day, so released programs on GitHub using ChatGPT API. I'd say I'm probably a fairly good customer of ChatGPT's API or OpenAI's API. So, don't try to give me advice on financial information systems. That's probably not something that anybody is really equipped to do. You can ask me questions. Don't even think about giving me advice. It's gonna make me mad. Don't even think about it. I don't think Steven Johnson syndrome's really something that happens too often. It happens with every drug. Modafinil is not, I think, that exceptional. And I wouldn't take modafinil unless you really needed it. I mean, most people don't need modafinil unless you have narcolepsy or something like that. What do you even need modafinil for? It's not a drug you should be playing with because you want to have a quote-unquote nootropic or something like that. I think people that do shit like that are idiots. You're either smart or you're not. You can't take some pills to get smart. You know, if you're smart, you should be happy. Use your God-given talent and leave it alone. The worst that I do is drink a couple cups of coffee. And I gotta quit that. It's giving me anxiety. Again, bad dreams. I wouldn't take any medicine. If you think that some medicine is going to make you smarter or study better or something like that, unless you have true ADHD, I wouldn't do it, and it certainly won't give you good long-term performance. They did a good study of caffeine versus modafinil versus ADHD medicines for chess players, which is a fairly pretty cognitive tool, and it didn't work. Ohm's law says there's no such thing as depression. That's not true, my friend. That is definitively not true. Depression's a very real thing. Now, what we understand depression is something that is hard for us to necessarily get our heads around. We probably will call it something different 50 years from now. But I do think it's pretty obvious there's a depression phenotype. You guys want to play chess? I want to play chess too so bad, but the market's opening in a minute. I have to get some systems ready for that. Let me power up one of them now. I get depressed all the time. I've suffered with depression my whole life on and off. Some periods are better than others. I've gone years without depression, and then sometimes I'll have mild depression for many years. Sometimes I'll have a period of time where I'll have kind of a major depressive episode. So, it's something that the average American will eventually struggle with at some point in their life. It's fairly common in that respect. Dysthymia, yeah, kind of a milder form of depression. Let's see here. Gotta jump into AWS real quick. Don't mind me. Maybe play one quick chess game because I'm addicted. I'm trying to get to 2000 ELO in Lichess or Lichess. Yes, NRIs are a little bit better than SSRIs, but they're pretty similar. If you have a psychiatrist that's seen thousands of patients, they're usually going to be pretty good at figuring out what's wrong with you. I'm very lucky. I have a very, very good psychiatrist. It's the first psychiatrist I ever saw has been my lifelong psychiatrist, and I think the guy basically saved my life. Depression and anxiety, especially, I had panic disorder, can be really, really debilitating. And yeah, I try to talk about it and help normalize it a little bit, especially for executives. I meet a lot of executives who feel like they can't talk about it or do something about it. We're all human, it's really not that big of a deal. Anyway. Oh, I'm having all kinds of systems issues, database connection issues. Nightmare. Yeah, you can go to github.com/Martin Shkreli. Macro will affect all of your industries equally, so you don't really have to follow the macro. If you worked at a hedge fund and you start talking about CPI, people would laugh at you. It's like, what the hell do you know about that? Unless you're a macro trader, you know, that has spent your whole life on macro trading, then in which case, you know, which I'm not, by the way, then you don't have to worry about it at all. All right, let me see. I have to investigate. Okay. All right, so it does look like there was some, I guess, COVID pickup period. Let's continue to look at this for Airbnb. It's another company that's kind of operated outside the law in a lot of ways, sort of like Uber. Don't appear to pay taxes, but that's probably because they lost gobs of money during COVID or something. Steve Cohen or Stan Druckenmiller? Oh man, I don't know. You're talking about two very rich guys that have been very good at the stock market. That's like arguing about Michael Jordan or LeBron James or something like that. You know, I'd say Steve Cohen's probably had more of an impact on Wall Street. You know, Druckenmiller certainly is an incredible investor, but you know, Steve Cohen sort of had a kind of a bigger business environment. Duquesne and Point State. I guess Point State wasn't really Stan anyway, but point is, you know, Cohen's sort of empire on Wall Street is always sort of bigger than Druckenmiller's, if that makes sense. So his footprint was kind of bigger. Not that that's the be-all end-all. Cohen never went to jail, no. Steve Cohen was generally kind of vaguely accused of insider trading by a lot of people, but it never really stuck in any particular way. You also have to think about the era that Steve grew up in. Wall Street was rife with insider trading. I mean, information arbitrage, quote unquote, was very, very popular. It's a lot less popular now. But back in the day, you know, it was all about what information you had. That's changed a lot. You know, people are no longer scrambling for secret information, primarily because it's kind of illegal to do so, but also because it doesn't seem to work that great. You know, companies' results could change quickly, and if you want to build a scalable enterprise, you can't, you know, try to be on top of every single stock and every single market, and you're in and out as soon as the conditions of that company's earnings change. That's not really a great way to invest. You know, Warren Buffett doesn't invest that way, for example. You know, it's kind of a silly thing. You're looking for companies that have, you know, the ability to grow and things like that. I mean, you make tons of money when you can do that. You can buy one stock that can really become a world leader. That's what Buffett did. Again, I'm not saying Cohen's strategy, you know, speaks for itself. His results are incredible, you know, but his results are kind of like funding lots of traders, in essence, to manage, smaller amounts of money, and hope that they can outperform the market. And that's worked really great. It's a brilliant move that he was sort of somewhat of a pioneer on. The whole pod shop is kind of the way some people say it, but giving a portfolio to different analysts. Like, for example, in this chat, I would give Ergo44 $200 million to trade biotech, and I would give Like Smasher $500 million to trade tech. And I would give Matt $1 billion to trade consumer. And whoever did the best, I would give them more money. And whoever did the least, I would did the poorest, I would say, I would take money out of their accounts and fire them. So that's kind of the way Steve Cohen works. And then I give Sheepe, big homie Sheepe, I give him 10% no matter what. He gets a taste off the rip. That's Orion. That's just what Albanians do, I'm a big Damien Hirst fan. Warren Buffett's the greatest investor ever. All right, this is the 10K for Airbnb. So if you haven't glanced at it, here's a chance to read an important document. The 10K represents the annual report for the company. It gives you all of the details about the business. Really critical to read these 10Ks. I remember in my college library, we'd have annual reports. I thought it was pretty cool, lying around, so you could always pick up an annual report and read something like the Airbnb annual report. So really cool college perk I had when I went to Baruch College. Who's the gayest investor? Let me think about that. Well, when you say gayest, I think sort of stereotypically. Let me think there. It's sort of a silly question. As in flamboyant. I really don't know. Yeah, there are some very successful gay investors. I know a couple. I'm trying to think. There's one, who everybody's probably thinking of, who's one of the wealthiest people in the world. You know what? Maybe I'd go with David Geffen. David Geffen. Peter isn't flamboyant. Yeah, I'm going to go with David Geffen or David Einhorn, even though Einhorn's not gay. I don't squash beef. All right, so interesting situation here for Airbnb. Let's take a look. Their 2019 revenue. This is all because of COVID, right? So this is like the most messed up thing that could happen to a new business. Obviously, it's the most messed up thing that could happen to society too, but we just have our business hat on at the moment. So they had 4.8 billion in revenue, right? And then for 2020, they had 3.4. So 4.8 to 3.4, big decline. And then 2021 picked back up, and we can see kind of what pace we're on for. It's very seasonal. You can see all the revenues in Q2 and Q3. And then I guess in the winter, people don't really use Airbnb. Again, I'm not an expert at Airbnb. I've only used it once. And again, I strongly encourage everyone to sort of ignore their own personal experiences with these stocks. I know there was this big meme when I was a kid. I actually remember quite vividly reading One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch in around probably April or May of 2000. I was living with my parents at the time and wanted to be a stock market genius, and I read about Peter Lynch's advice that you can go to the mall, your local mall, and sort of see what stocks are doing the best by seeing who's selling the most product and stuff like that in your own mall. Now that's nonsense. I really think there's no benefit to doing that. Investing is a lot more sophisticated than that. There's no doubt that obviously there's some feedback you can get, but the stock market knows this kind of stuff. The stock market knows if a company's business is doing well. Maybe things were a little different in the Magellan days, and I don't want to take anything away from Peter Lynch, who did very well, but the world's changed quite a bit since then, and I really wouldn't endorse that approach. Investing is about buying something for the right price. That's something that I try to stress to everybody. There are good companies, there are bad companies, but in a lot of ways that's not that relevant to the investor. The investor buys at a good price. There's some great companies like Apple where there's just not a price that you would ever want to use that price as your purchase price. And there's some terrible companies that you'd want to buy at the right price. I'm talking a lot like a value investor. Of course, in the long run, growth tends to obscure the utility of price and price discipline. For example, if you really were convinced that Apple was a great company 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago, it would have been a great call no matter what price you paid. But that requires like a really unbelievable ability to see the future, and often that's fairly stochastic. Okay, so Airbnb, 4.8 billion, 3.4 billion, so that's COVID, down 30%. Up to 6 billion, that's the COVID rebound. And then 40% growth for 2022. Pretty interesting. I have this like natural aversion to this company for some reason, but as I'm glancing at it, I think like it could be a long. And again, I'm trying to let my psychology talk to me and listen to it, which is something a lot of traders have trouble with. There's a lot of talk about this in Ari Kiev's book, Trading to Win, which I highly recommend if you want to learn how to trade, which again is not my thing. If I was trading, you'd see me with 35 screens, 6 cappuccinos, 4 assistants, 2 phones hanging off of my shoulders, and that's just not a fun way to live life. Screaming at some broker. If you do quantitative investing, you should. Machine learning is just one tool to do quantitative investing with. ML is kind of an overused term. There's a lot of ML models. Just check out Hugging Face, for example. Oh wow, look at that product development cost. I wonder if that was a one-time item in there. Should I look at AMC or GME? You want to be self-loathing today? I don't understand what got into people for those stocks. Like, what a crazy dynamic. There's so many things wrong with that whole situation. I don't think every good investor has an edge. I don't like that word edge. It's in old Wall Street was synonymous with insider info, basically. All right, let's look at this nights and experiences booked. I don't know what that means. Nights and experiences booked. Is that the way they measure their business? 300.6 million nights. So that's almost 365, but it sounds like it's a more global business than I thought. So 114 million nights in North America. That means that in any given day, 300,000 people are staying in an Airbnb. On any given day. I should probably call these stays instead of nights, but I'll use their terminology for now. They have more EMEA usage than North America. That's impressive. All right, so nights grew, let's see if nights grows faster or slower than revenue, probably the same. So we can also get ARPU. Okay, nights grew faster. So 6 billion revenue for 300 million nights means $20 for Airbnb every night. So they're getting like a 5% fee or something like that, right? We don't know the gross market value. There it is, gross booking value. Probably don't need this geographically split quite yet. 46,877, it'll be lazy. And just take the total amount. Look at the North America revenue is a lot higher than EMEA, even though there's more nights. So the average place on Airbnb is much more expensive in North America, which makes sense. So most prices are out of control. All right, so the average Airbnb is $156 a night. Remember, that's global. So the average North America, let me just do NAT, North America GBV. This is kind of similar in a lot of ways to other models I built, where you have to sort of look at the whole hotel industry. How large is the hotel industry, period? And then think about how much can Airbnb take of that. That's the right way to model this. And that's probably, made some venture capitalists pretty rich. Pretty great investment if you could made it, right? All right, so the average North American Airbnb is $222 a night, which, again, in New York City, it's quite a bit more. WeWork. Yeah, just go to GitHub. I have a GitHub, github.com/Martin Shkreli. There's a couple of repos up on there. The stock market one is called Models. Am I your favorite e-girl? Should I take my shirt off? Can I do that? Can dudes stream with their shirt off? have to get buff first. Once I get buff, I'll do it. Hey, Fonte, happy Valentine's Day. How's my German friend? I was just with a great crypto German who was watching this channel since he was 17, and now he's done very well in crypto. I'm very happy for him. No nipples allowed, period? You gotta free the nip, man. Daily reminder to fuck Serbia. You know, some Albanians have forgiven the Serbs and have made friendship. Some have not. Airbnb. Oh, look at this. Just the data I needed. We want to go back in time for Airbnb all the way to the distant past of 2016. I don't even remember 2016. So, isn't that a funny chart? They basically have been able to weather COVID. Isn't that crazy? Look at this. Oh, okay, they have a typo, thank God. 37962.6, there we go, okay. Just a funny, decline due to COVID. That's weird. Their 2021 nights has not fully recovered from 2019, even though GBV did. It's a little odd. Make sure I'm getting this right. That seems like... Because, it's so weird, because revenue is higher. I guess it just had really low ARPU, or GBV per night, or whatever. So even though they had fewer stays, they had more revenue and more GBV, gross booking value for anyone curious. It feels a little weird to me. This is really great business lesson for me as well. Airbnb is a really fascinating company, and it's a great way to test whether or not you can forecast correctly. If you can forecast a company like this or like Netflix, you can forecast anything. Wow, look at the COVID quarter. We basically had no bookings, which makes sense. But they had a pretty good next quarter. It's crazy. down 72%. Holy moly. Well, glad they got through that. This is a really interesting company. I'm really enjoying this. Now we'll get to the fun part. This is sort of the maintenance part. Just perusing the past of the business. Now we're going to think about the future. This is much more interesting and much more fun and much more difficult. This part's quite easy. Anybody can do this part. Lord knows you've seen me do it enough times. You should be able to do it 1, 2, 3. The next part requires you to put your thinking cap on. Get a cup of coffee and really start to get cerebral. This is the part that makes you rich. Or the other way around. Many times, both. I should probably plug in cash flow, just so we have a sense for that. I don't think it's going to matter that much, but I think it's useful. They don't have much CapEx, which is good. I wouldn't say good, it's just a fact. Get one more cash flow number, basically. You got the thinking cap? Good. We're gonna need it. Okay, ton of cash flow in 2021. So the company actually, even though the net income was reported to be $500 million, they actually generated $2.2 billion of actual cash. So real profits. And almost no CapEx, only 25 million of CapEx. So I'm guessing they just run on AWS or something like that. They have an AWS bill, and that's how they have CapEx. So how many, this is the way that I would do this. This is why you guys pay me the big bucks. How many hotel stays occur in the US every day or every year? What would you guess? 10 billion? Over the course of a year. Remember, it's 365 days. So if 10 people are using hotels, if 1 million people are using hotels every night, that's 365 million. Is 1/365th of the country in a hotel on any given day. It's a tough one. Let's see. U.S. hotel stays. Hotel stays annual. This is occupancy rate. I don't know that we want that. So there's 5 million hotel rooms. 66% occupancy. $56,000 hotels. But there's motels too. occupancy 57, 58%. RevPAR is revenue per available room, which is an industry statistic. 52,000 hotels. Again, the number of hotels doesn't really matter to me. I'm really thinking about the number of rooms, maybe. Here's an interesting statistic. $142 billion in revenue. Okay, 1.3 billion. Okay, the numbers seem to be... All right, so it looks like Airbnb has like 10% market share of all hotels, but they've also kind of created a new kind of experience in a lot of ways, right? Also want to see Airbnb's fourth quarter. Oh, it's not out yet. Comes out tonight after the close. Cool. So again, 1.3 billion rooms. It sort of solves the occupancy problem, right? So the problem with the hotel is you have an occupancy issue where, you know, a third of the time your room is empty and you don't make any money. With Airbnb, there's no real occupancy problem, so they can kind of operate more efficiently. Welcome all my German friends. So is it possible that
what percentage of hotel stays could actually be done through Airbnb. And again, it's sort of an extra new experience, right? It's not like... Is it? Hello. I'm not banned from Airbnb yet. This is tricky. If you think about it, they have like 6% of global hotel revenue. This is a really interesting business problem. This isn't just about one stock. This is about a process that you could repeat for lots of stocks. I want to make sure I do it right. So I might be less entertaining than some other streamers, but I think I'm a bit more cerebral. Nine-month cash flow for Airbnb, $3 billion. That's record. Yeah, I don't think there are too many streamers actually punching numbers, so I agree with you on that, but all right, let's say they can get 25%. I've sort of settled on that number in my mind. They can get 25% of all the rooms in the US. They'd grow 30% a year for the next 4 years. Maybe they'll grow a little slower for more years, like that. But that's the gist of it, right? They do the same thing in the rest of the world. Their ARPU stays relatively steady. The revenue is nights times ARPU, right? Sales and marketing has not gone up. It's amazing. People just use Airbnb. That is so crazy. What a product when you don't need to advertise it and your product is still growing and growing. Isn't that crazy? Think about that. Oh man, I'm gonna hate this. If I love this stock, I'm gonna be annoyed because I hate the company, but I'm gonna love the stock. It happens. I'm gonna never use their product. All right, can they get this much market share of the hotel business? That's another question. That's where the discount rate comes in, right? Oh man, I guess I'm not going to love the stock. See, I thought that was going to be a big number, but guess what the share price I calculated was? 125, 126. Current stock price 116. Man, I guess the market's just really good at discounting. That's kind of crazy. I don't know why. It would seem like it would be a lot better along than that. It's only like 20 times earnings. How could it not be a better long? Let me adjust my numbers until it is. That's what you should not do. That was a joke. Huh. Well, I guess there's this issue where even if they grow 20% for a little while, they're going to hit a wall. They can't replace hotels, right? I don't look at oil stocks, I'm sorry. Just out of my expertise. Maybe I'll try it someday. They can't take over the entire hotel industry, so I did 25%, which is quite a lot. They're at 10% right now, and they reach sort of a peak at 25%. So if they hit that 25%, that's already in the stock. You already get that basically in the current stock price. Yeah, Tomas and ASIC 1930, I think you're right. I do have a bear model. Some business stays in Airbnb. I agree with Anthony S. The Airbnb process is a little annoying, but there are people who want, as I thought about that 25% number, I thought about people who really are price sensitive or experience sensitive, where they want a specific thing. And Airbnb kind of fits that pretty well for that chunk of the market. For the business traveler, it doesn't often make sense, but it can help a business traveler when hotels are really overbooked for conferences and stuff like that.